Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Redirection with Terri-Karelle Season 3. How are you? I'm your host, Terri-Karelle. If this is the first time you are stumbling upon this podcast, it is brought to you by MasterCard in association with Heineken 00 and Toyota Jamaica. How have you been enjoying Season 3 so far?
Myself, and I, if I may say so,
I'm actually loving it. I think what I look forward to every week is the fact that no two guests are alike. Everyone's stories are different, and I think it's so important that we don't ever compare them. I think that's the beauty of it, that everyone has experienced some sort of challenge, some sort of rejection, disappointment, just maybe hurtful circumstances, and yet they can all come and share their stories in their way, in their words, and it just be something that all of us can relate to no matter where we are from. And that is really what the platform is here. And this is why the platform is here, what it is for. We created a new website, redirectionpodcast.com, where you can get all your information on episodes you've watched, episodes you haven't. Simply, we just wanted to make or create a hub for you. And if you're sharing any episode on your social media networks, please go ahead and use the hashtag TK Redirection. Before I dive into this conversation that I'm really excited to do so, I just want to do a big shout out to my partners without whom none of this would be possible. Concepts, I know some love you, right? The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cameras. I mean, talk about production quality. Love you. Spaces. Every single time a guest comes into the space, they're just like, wow, it's so warm. The colors, it is bright, it is vibrant, but more importantly, it is comfortable. A lot of our guests come on and they're sometimes, very nervous, very anxious, and just coming into the space makes them feel so much better. To MDs, Beauty Brands by MDS, Tree Hut, thank you so very much. Brescia, purposeful and always prepared. Go Short Couriers, my people. You know that I absolutely appreciate you for all the work that you do. First Heritage Cooperative Credit Union, I appreciate you always just trying to let us know that saving is extremely important. Naturally, MasterCard, always looking for the priceless moments. Heineken 00, reminding us, no, we can. And Toyota Jamaica, I'm a proud Toyota ambassador, so I'm always going to tell you, if you're in the market looking for a hybrid, then Toyota Jamaica is the place to go. Tony Aiken, sign language interpreter, who is here on set, bursting out in laughter depending on the conversations we have been having. Thank you so very much for being that bridge. And I see my daughter on set trying to wave to me, so I'm just going to take the opportunity to big up my daughter, Naima Courtney Reed, who is on set with us today. So who is sitting in the redirection seat? All I can say is that she epitomizes the idea or the quote that you are more than your circumstances. You are made for more. You matter in this world. No matter what has happened to you, you are shaped and molded depending on the decisions that you make for yourself and the actions that you take for yourself and the efforts that you put in for yourself. Who is coming up? Well, you're just gonna have to stick around and see. Redirection with Terri-Karelle starts now. Sharai Boss Lady Campbell, if I can just put in Boss Lady Campbell. Welcome to the redirection seat.
Thank you for having me.
How are you?
I am fabulous. Fantastic.
I can see that. Now,
Yes.
you function as a chief operating officer. Tell me more about what it is you do right now.
So currently I'm employed to a logistics service provider, and we provide back office support, administrative support, dispatch, customer service support to the logistics industry. But we've recently decided to branch out from that because we have had so many persons reach out to us and ask us if our company is able to provide those type of outsourced services as well. Yes. So in my day-to-day, what I do now is really head cook and bottle washer. I do everything. It would be, I would say, difficult for me to sum it up
Yes.
into a few sentences, but think about everything operations, everything strategic planning, management, finance, HR, company policies, risk management, all of it.
No, but you sound like you wear a lot of hats.
I do.
So the question I have for you, Sharai, is sitting down now, the seat that you are in, is this where you saw yourself?
Oh, absolutely not.
Talk to me about Sharai growing up, maybe her dreams, her interests, and how you transitioned into the woman you are now and the woman you are still becoming.
Okay, that's a very good question. And it's a difficult one to answer because I saw so many things in myself growing
Nice.
up. I believe I'm multi-talented, I'm multifaceted,
Yes.
and I could not put myself in one box. And so when you're going to high school or prep school or primary school, persons ask you, what do you want to be?
Yes.
And I would give some of the generic answers, nurse and doctor, pediatrician, all of these things. But to be honest, if I'm honest about it, none of those really summed up what I felt within myself was possible for me to do. And I never really had a true direction.
Really?
I felt like I was going to do something that was meaningful, but I didn't know exactly what it was.
Where do you hail from?
So originally, I'm from Negril.
Yes. Oh,
Yes.
I love Negril.
But I moved to Montego Bay when I was 8. I do not really claim Montego Bay. I claim Negril.
Yes.
Even though I've been in Montego Bay for most of my life. Yeah.
Really? And what was that transition like? I know when we have to move as children, for some of us, we understand why we're moving. Other times, we've just kind of had to go along with whatever our parents or our guardians wanted us to do and kind of just waking up in a new space without any form of communication, navigation. Talk to me about what that experience was like for you.
It was difficult. I never understood why. I still don't know the reason why. At 8, my mother decided we're leaving Negril. I thought our life was good there. I had friends there. I loved my school there. It was such a happy environment. I loved it. And when we moved to Montego Bay, a lot changed. A lot changed, and not in a good way for me. Or my family, I would say, because we started out having and then we moved into not. And not so much as not having, but we were impoverished. Things deteriorated pretty quickly for us when we moved, and it was difficult for me to understand why my mother made this decision, because we didn't benefit not from what I saw.
You keep on saying we. It was you and mommy, or was your family bigger?
So me, my mom, and my brother at the time, and after that she had another child. I say we because my child too. Yeah, my youngest brother as well.
What are some of the things that you, even as a child, were able to say, well, I had this, but I don't have it now? Give me an example.
Oh, so much stability. Stability is the one thing that we lost when we moved from Negril. We moved a lot when we were in Montego Bay. And I could see, looking back now, I could see why my mother would do it. I didn't understand the reason, but I could understand that she was really trying to move into a better space, give us something better. And I could see herself trying to do that, but circumstances beyond her control didn't afford her to. And so that would be, I would say, the biggest difference between Sharai in Negril and Sharai in Montego Bay was the stability, and then the lack of that created so many other negatives.
All right, we're going to talk about the negatives, but also as you are, and it's interesting that as an older woman now, and I look back, I was sitting down and speaking to two of my closest friends. We kind of came up in high school together, and we were really, really close. I mean, bench and batty is what we would say. And it was while we were sitting down over some food, we realized we started to open up and we started to express what we actually went through in high school, in our personal lives. And it took all of us by surprise how much we carry.
Right.
How much we don't share. How much we show up to school and all of these different spaces, church, and we put on this face of, I'm fine.
Yep.
I'm good. And if anybody looked at us, they'd probably assume that everything is fine.
Right.
So here it is, you are displaced from an environment that you loved.
Yes.
And you are now trying to figure out this new space along with your mom. And God bless them, they don't always know how to communicate because they're trying to figure it out as well.
Right.
What was that transition to new school life? New friends? Did you make friends? Did they accept you as the new person coming in? Talk to me about the social aspect of Sharai trying to now pick up the pieces having left.
Okay, so it was a difficult transition. So I moved from going to a prep school to a primary school. That in and of itself was a very big transition. Not just the environment, but the class sizes and so on was a very difficult adjustment. I would also say it was difficult for me to make friends. I've always been an introvert.
Yes.
So the fact that I had friends in Negril to begin with, I now have to come and make some new friends. I was like, what? I don't want to be making any new friends. I want my friend. I want my friends in Negril. I left them there. Bring me back.
Yeah.
So socially, I spent 2 years in primary school. I did the last year of common entrance, right? So I was lucky enough to leave primary school without going into grade 6 and moving into high school.
Yes.
But I did not feel like I belonged because the environment was so much different. I did not know how to talk patois. I didn't know. So coming into that environment as well, there was, I would say, a bit of bullying as well when you have someone who is an other, someone who is a little bit different, someone who speaks a little bit different, whose background is a little bit different. And children, God bless them.
But
God
they
bless
can be
us.
mean.
But they can be mean. They can be mean. So I would say primary school was a terrible time. I didn't want to go to school.
Yeah, and I think what we often overlook is that we spend most of our lives at school. Most of our lives
Yeah.
at school is in a classroom or extracurricular activities. And so if you are in an environment where bullying is something you are experiencing, you're experiencing that every single
Every
day,
day.
5 days a week for a lot of hours. Did you ever tell anyone? Did you ever tell mommy, or did you feel it was something that you had to carry?
A bit of both. I told her, but I don't think I really told her. Mainly because I didn't have the words to express, and I could also see that she was doing the best she could. How could I add another burden to it? So I would express to her in ways like, I don't want to go today, or this person picks on me. But I never explained to her the extent of what it was.
Yeah.
Mainly because I probably didn't know how to articulate it, but also I didn't want to add
burden.
more to her. Yeah.
It's interesting how every time we've had this kind of conversation with children who've experienced trauma, and you ask them, have you ever said anything? A lot of them felt the responsibility. Almost they assumed the responsibility
Yeah.
of a parent, where it was, I didn't want to bother.
Yeah.
I didn't want to burden. What advice do you have, even now that you are sitting down in this position? Anyone who is listening who might be going through something, trauma, transition, who are afraid to speak simply because they assume that they will be burdensome, what do you have to say to them?
That is a good question. And in hindsight, I could say, don't assume that you will be a burden. Speak up. Let people know what you're experiencing, and the persons who are willing and want to help will step in to do so. A lot of times we, as you mentioned, we assume that burden. We do not want to speak up because maybe of the shame,
Yes.
maybe because of things that were said to us before. And sometimes you need an outlet or someone else. And if you try one person, don't give up. Look at other people who are in your environment who would be more open to you being vulnerable and
Yes.
expressing to them what you're going through.
Yeah, and respecting that
Yeah.
vulnerability that you
Correct.
come with. So you say, hey, primary school was not the best of environments for me, but I pushed through. And I do my common entrance.
Yes.
Big up to all of the common entrance babies
Hey,
out there. Woo, woo,
yes,
woo, woo,
yes,
woo.
yes.
I mean, I go into rooms now and it's more GSAT babies that I'm meeting, but big up to the maths, English, and the mental ability. So you get into high school, and is this a better transition for you? Are you finding yourself, or are you coming up on more roadblocks?
I am coming up on more roadblocks,
Talk
and
to
I
me.
will divide my life as a child in two halves:
Okay.
birth to 8 and 8 to 16.
Okay.
I divide it that way because between 8 to 16, there was so much packed into those years that one person should not go through. I've always said to the people I talk to on a regular basis that I've lived the life of at least 10 people,
Wow.
because there shouldn't be a situation in which one person should have
Endure.
to endure so much. So I look at going into high school, looking that or thinking that this was going to be a better environment, and it was, but things were not good at home. So even though my school life improved, I was bringing with me now all of the things happening at home. And I use school, I try to push myself to do better. But 7th and 8th grade, I almost failed. I believe my 8th grade average was barely passed, maybe 51, 52.
Really?
Yeah.
What was happening at home? Even, I mean, outside of you understanding mommy trying to do what
Yeah.
she can do, trying to make a life with what she has in the moment, what was slipping so much for you that it started to affect even you very, self-aware, self-empowered in spite of? What were those things?
So, in addition to moving frequently, I believe we would move at least twice a year
Wow, that's a lot.
because we had no home, and each place that we moved to was a little worse than the last. But we moved there kind of to catch until we figured out the next step. And it got so much that I started kind of making up a little chant. I don't remember it now, to kind of say, okay, I moved from here to there to there to there, to make light of it. But there was also that. But what was the biggest thing that was happening at the time was I was living in an abusive household,
Got you.
physically, psychologically, emotionally. And even though the abuse was not, well, the physical abuse was not directed to me,
You're experiencing
I'm
it.
experiencing this daily. And then it is now the emotional and the psychological aspect. And I have to get up and I have to take care of my brothers and I have to take care of my mom to some extent. And I have to go to school and perform. So 7th to 8th grade, I could not make light of this. And I remember the worst living condition that we had was really what kind of took the cake in
Yeah.
that space, which was we were living in a room that was just ply all around. And that was it. We didn't even have a bathroom. We had to use our neighbor's bathroom, and to go and, get ready for school somewhere else, to maybe shower outside. To, if you want to use the bathroom, you have to be asking your neighbor if you can come there, and then go to school and excel. That is hard, to do.
It's a lot to ask of a
It's a lot
child.
to ask, but I now have to be the strong one. I'm the firstborn. I do not have the option of not having it together. So I now have to take care of my brothers. I have to be the rock for my mother. And I now have to go to school. Something had to give. And for 7th and 8th grade, that were my
That was your
grades.
grades. Did your teachers notice?
Oh,
Did anybody notice that you were not performing at the same level? And I mean, I've heard counselors at school always say that that's usually one of the things that they notice when they have bright sparks, when they have students who are performing at a level and then all of a sudden they see a dip that is not like them.
I don't think, because these teachers didn't know me. I went to high school in 7th grade. They didn't know my performance in primary school, in prep school. So I don't think they saw
Got
what
you.
my actual capabilities were, to be able to identify that this was not my standard of performance.
Yeah.
And so in 9th grade, I remember I was kind of demoted in stream, moved over to one of those classes with the underperformers. And that was what changed something. Because when my mother come home, she cussed.
Well, I was gonna ask you if mommy realized that, all right, Sharai, what is going on here? So you said mommy was
Yeah,
not
man, she
happy.
was not happy, but she didn't understand Why?
The impact.
She came home and she said, I'm doing all of this for you. What are these grades? And that conversation with her shook me. But also moving into the other stream, when the realities set in, I'm like, no, man,
Have to do
I
better.
have to do better.
What did you change?
My outlook on it, because my circumstances didn't change, but my outlook changed, and I wanted to be in that moment the best version of myself I could be, because there had to be something on the other side of this.
Amen.
And if I'm not doing what I need to do now to get there, then I'm going to be stuck in this place, and I'm not going to be stuck at that place.
Did you ever speak to your mom about the impact? Like when she did ask you, how your grades stay so bad?
No, I didn't.
Is that because you wanted to spare her shame, or because, again, you lacked the ability to articulate exactly what was going on?
I think a bit of both. I would say maybe not being able to say, I didn't want to point a finger at her to say, because of what you have chosen to do with your life, or because of the decisions you have made, I am now doing this. It's casting blame, because again, I see that she's trying in a Terri, and I did not want to add to that.
Understood.
So I figured I needed to just suck it up.
So you said, I'm going to have a better version.
Yeah.
I'm going to be more. I'm going to do more. And what I've come to realize is, for people who come from circumstances where they lack a lot, usually there is a hunger to not stay here, to not do this, even though statistically the cycle usually repeats itself. You were determined to beat that cycle.
Right.
So what happened now? Grades are pump. What going on?
So when I moved over into 9th grade, and I guess 10th and 11th, things kind of evened out.
Nice.
I wanted to be a prefect. I wanted to be a student council rep. I wanted to do so many things. And so I said, well, I'm going to do them. And regardless of the circumstances, I pushed through and I did. My grades improved. When I moved into grade 10, they moved me back. No, I wanted to do sciences because, I want to be a doctor.
Yes,
I want to be
of
a
course.
pediatrician. So I'm doing sciences. My mother said, do a business subject. I'm doing PO.
Yes.
Those friends, those also made a big impact, I would say, because they were new to the school as well.
Got
a lot
you.
of them transferred over. So because of that,
There was commonality.
right.
Very nice. So you are now heading out of high school and you're looking to the future.
Yes.
This is what I'm going to be, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to pursue. Do you pursue medicine?
So
Why is Sharai laughing?
So I went to Montego Bay Community College, going in, doing all A-level sciences, maths, the whole thing.
Yes.
And I believe maybe the first month or so, I'm like,
I don't need it.
no, sir. It was hard, but it was hard again because it demanded more. And I felt like I was already so stretched.
Yes.
And things did not improve at home either. And so I didn't feel like I had that much of myself to give. I still went. I still did, I would say, an okay job.
Yes.
But I determined at that point that it wasn't the right course for me.
So then what's the right course for you?
We're still writing this story.
Yes.
And at the time, I didn't know what it was. To be honest, I didn't know. So I ended up having 2 sets of A-levels because I went on a fact-finding mission. Okay, so I did the sciences. I don't really like it. Let's do some social sciences.
Yes.
So I did psychology, sociology, English, law. And I'm like, well, psychology looked like a vibe. I could do that. And so I said, okay, this is probably a path I would want to go on if available to me. So, yeah.
What do you think about situations where parents think that their children should know what they want to do? Or the fact that there's some people who still judge students who haven't figured it out yet? What do you mean you don't know what you want to do? What do you mean you just at what advice do you have for the student who's on your side of the coin, trying things out to see what really sticks? But then also parents who don't yet understand that sometimes students have to do that, children have to do that.
I would say give grace. One, give persons the opportunity to find their life and what they're supposed to do. A lot of parents, teachers even will push onto a student or a child what they want for them, and that may not be the course for that child. So find out what that child is good at, their interest, allow them to try new things so they can find their niche
Yeah.
or find the thing. Because if I wasn't allowed to do that, I wouldn't have probably been on the path I was on if my mother never allowed me to switch.
Why do you think your mom stayed? Do you think it's because she felt she couldn't do any better? There's so many different reasons, but in hindsight, why do you think?
She's, I never told her I was doing this interview. I don't know how this is going to be received. But this is a part of my story, so I'll tell it.
Got you.
I believe, and I could be mistaken, that the reason she stayed is because she was afraid. One, afraid for herself, afraid for her children, but also what was being provided. As little as it was still being provided. It was something. And if that is not being provided, how do my children go to school? How do I show up in the world? What do we do next? Where do we live? And I believe that played a big part in her decision.
Oh, it's almost self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
It really is self-sacrificing, and we some of us will never understand, and for some of us it's very easy to judge from afar, and it's very easy for some people to say, if it were me, and I would.
Right.
And if you put those same people in the same position, you'd be surprised to know what they would accept.
Right.
When your back is against the wall and you really don't know, where it is you're going to go. Were you ever fearful that as you became Sharai, the woman you are, and you are being redirected and you're trying to navigate through this world, how that would affect your relationships?
Oh, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely, because growing up and not seeing a healthy relationship, if that is all you've really seen, you don't really have much to model your relationships after. And a part of you also feel that where you come from and what you've been through doesn't qualify you for that loving relationship. That may not happen for me. But what I did instead is say, I would rather stay by myself than go through that. Absolutely not. So instead of falling in that cycle, which so many people do, I said to myself, if I am not in a loving, cherished relationship, I'd rather stay by myself.
Good on you.
I'm not going to do that.
Good on you. You chose yourself.
Yeah, I did.
You chose yourself. And I think you also got an opportunity to see what you wouldn't want for yourself,
correct.
or you would not want for your sister if you had one, or if you had a daughter, you just simply would not want that, especially understanding the impact it had on you.
Right.
So you're looking at psychology and you're like, this is a vibe.
Yeah, man.
Why not? Let's try it out. Let's see if it stick. Did it stick?
Oh boy, we went up to 16, but that is where things really got worse.
Really?
Oh yes. That is just the beginning
What happens
of
at 16?
everything. So now my mom, she decides that she's going to go on, work travel program. I don't know what they call it, the official term for it.
Work travel.
And the options given to me now, because I now have to live somewhere, the option is to live with this man or go to my aunt in the country. And it's rural Jamaica now, like pit toilet rural. And I said to her, I want none of those things. I'm not picking any of those things. So what else is there?
And you had brothers?
I had brothers. I had, he was 12 at the time, I was 16. And then the youngest one would have just been born like less than a year. And I'm saying, listen, I'm not going into the ghetto to live with this man, right? Because he never lived with us in that shack. He
Was in
came,
and
right?
out.
I'm not going into no ghetto to live with this man that does not like me, and I do not like. That's not happening. Nor am I going to the country to be using no pit toilet. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it.
So what were your options?
So I said to her, I'm big enough to take care of myself now. So I want to live by myself. Right? I want to live with myself, by myself. You can let my middle brother stay with me if you want, but I'm not going to any of those places. So
It's just interesting because at 16, so many of us, and it's a privilege that a lot of us don't know we have. When at 16, some of us thinking about extracurricular activities, we're thinking about whatever it is that is a topic, a trend, and here it is at 16, you are negotiating with your mom with
yes.
regards to where you're gonna stay, where you're gonna
Correct.
live, and how you're gonna continue as a
Yes,
student.
correct. So eventually she agreed to move me into a house, well, an apartment on a house with a family. There, she asked the family to look after me and my brother. So even though we were living in a separate section, she said, can you give an eye on my children? The youngest one went with his father, and me and my 12-year-old, I said, listen, is either you go there or here, but this is where I'm going. He chose to stay with me. And that was a terrible decision, to be honest, because I was not ready to be living on my own. It was terrible. And so much came from that, Terry. And I'm going to just spit them off because we only have an hour.
Yeah.
I got sexually assaulted by a family friend for the person who lived upstairs. I ended up having to move into the ghetto I didn't want to move into, and then rapidly being kicked out of the house there. So now I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go.
And you are 16?
I'm 16.
My God.
So now here I am, I don't know. In the middle of the night, this man is telling me I need to get out of his house because when I moved there, he didn't really stop to think about the trauma I had just gone through. So now I'm moving into this house. It's time for me to cook, clean, wash, all of these things. And I'm, you know,
And you're still going to school?
I am, yes. And I can barely get out of bed and function because I just went through this traumatic experience, you know.
Did mommy know? Did mommy know of all the things that were happening?
I told her, and she was the one who said, you know, leave, because I can't go back to this house, this apartment. And she said, go and stay. No, at the time, even though I didn't want to, it's closer to school for me. And I'm not really thinking clearly either. So I ended up there. And he just did not understand.
I didn't care.
And he probably didn't care. He did not care. And he kicked me out.
But that leaves you in a more vulnerable situation than you were in before. And your brother?
So I told him, so he wanted to come. I'm like, I don't know where we're going, you know, so you stay. So, and I can only imagine, we don't talk about it, you know, my brother and I. We don't speak about it because it's too painful of a time. So I could only imagine the receiving end of it on his side, seeing his sister go through this. And he probably wanted to help, but he's 12. He's 12, what is he gonna do? So what do? It's the middle of the night. I go next door, knock up the people. Hey, can I spend the night here? And I stayed there for a while. I don't know how long. A lot of it is kind of a fog. But I stayed there until I couldn't stay there anymore.
How are you?
How am I now?
Yes, how are you?
Healing.
What does that
Not
look
healed.
like? And that's understandable.
Healing.
What does it take to be in the process of healing? Even as you sit and you think about what you've been through, what have you done that you've tried to even start the process of healing?
So initially I repressed everything. I pretended that this was not my life, somebody else's life, and I'm going to do the best I can. So I started going through the motions, not really thinking. And when you have compounded traumas on top of each other, it's either you're going to let it break you or you're going to work through it. and I could not work through it. I wasn't developed. I was young. I
You
don't
were
know
a
how do you
baby.
work through this. I don't know. So I repressed it. And I thought and focused on the other things I could focus on. So going to school, I still did that. And then eventually working. So I got a job as an intern at Air Jamaica.
Yes.
Yes.
Go here, Jamaica.
And
Go bring back your Jamaica.
please bring it back. And I focused a lot on that.
Yeah.
And again, looking at there has to be something more than this. There has to be a good life, because remember, I was living a good life in Negril. So I know one
You
existed.
must have been asking why.
Listen, every day
that
to this
has got
day.
to be maybe the one question you ask. Why was I removed? Which was a huge redirection
Yes.
for if I really stop and look at the points where you were redirected. Having something so good, you kind of probably even want to ask God, like, why would you take me out of
Yes.
something where I was being nurtured and nourished and happy and healthy, and put me in what I could consider to be dysfunction?
It was dysfunction. And to continue on the answer, after the repression was the therapy, which I only recently started seeking some years ago.
Yeah.
Right? But to answer your current question, I asked myself, and I still to this day, somewhat, not as much, ask myself, why? Why would God take me from this place of love and abundance and bring me to this? What is this? What is this life? But the only question I could think of is there has to be a lesson or something that I'm supposed to get out of it, because it can't be this. This cannot be it, because I know that better lives exist out there.
Correct.
So why not for me?
What was the lessons, as hard as they might have been for you, becoming who you are now? With all your strengths, your characteristics, your traits, your personality, your values, your principles, you are a praying woman. We prayed before we started this
Yes.
conversation. What is it, even in the depth of darkness, was able to keep that faith, hold that faith, push you through, bring you come?
Okay, so I'm speaking now from a place of hindsight, because at the time,
Oh,
that
God.
was not my outlook. At the time, I'm just putting one foot in front of the other.
Autopilot.
That is it. Because as I mentioned, a lot of it was repressed. I didn't deal with it. I'm just doing the next thing, focusing on that one positive thing that I can, and then going from there. Because now, like you mentioned, I'm in dysfunction. My life is displaced. I have no idea. I am now living on my own. What do I do now to make a life for myself? And to add on top of that, my brother, the one that stayed,
Yes.
ended up getting kicked out as well. And now I have him plus the little one, right? So now I have 2 children that I now have to take care of in all of this. So at the end of the day, for me, going through it, the lessons in hindsight are too much for me to share. Because if you sit and dissect each piece, I would say the overarching theme is perseverance and resilience.
Yeah.
Just taking the next best step. But to give a lesson from each of them would be hard for me to do, because a lot of it I still haven't reconciled.
I can imagine. And I think listening to your story, it's one of the hardest things that we have to come to grips with in Jamaica is how easy, not maybe how easy it is to leave children with people, but just how common it is. A lot of us do not realize that many, even adults walking around who are functioning in various roles and positions as managers, CEOs, C-suite, line staff, many of them are walking around with childhood traumas that they have not yet come to terms with.
Correct.
They have not been apologized to. Adults in their lives who have failed them, and some of them did it unintentionally, but because they just couldn't figure it out. they have not identified and acknowledged the pain that has been caused. And I think so many adults are walking around empty
Yes.
shells
Yeah.
of what they should be, simply because there was no closure,
Right.
no therapy. And here it is, you, just a little baby,
Listen.
having to really assume the role as a single parent, while still trying to figure out this world of work.
Yeah.
Because now you're interning and you're trying to make money.
Yes.
And you're trying to figure out how you are going to have a healthy life for yourself and then by extension
My brothers.
for your brothers. How do you navigate when we have adults who 40, 50 can navigate, and yet still you had to?
So I focused on them and not me. Because if I focused on myself, I don't think I could have done it, because I would have focused more on the loss and the trauma. So I focused on my brothers and giving them what I didn't get, a place that they could call home, a place where there was food available, a place where they didn't have to worry about lunch money or books or any of it. And I really, again, repression, and I can only speak that because of the therapy and the work I've done
Correct.
now. I could not focus on me. I focused on them instead.
And now you are COO.
Yes.
You've moved from a place of internship, which is inexperience, right? When you're an intern, you're green, you're inexperienced, you're trying to figure out who you are, you're trying to build skills and hopefully other traits that you will then pass on into your next role. How were you able to perform at work? So we know earlier school was affected.
Yes.
You're still young, but you have a little bit more experience in terms of how you are going to be on autopilot. How about performing in the workplace and what is required of you to perform?
So, one, I think I focused on the excitement of working at Air Jamaica, right? Because you put on the pretty, and now there is this, I would say, honor and privilege and pride that comes with it, the confidence. But in that internship role, what made the biggest difference to me was the manager I had.
Beautiful.
She saw something in me I did not see in myself. Marianne Henry, big up yourself. And I still see her from time to time in passing, and I don't think she understands the impact, because I saw her as a mother figure when I never really had one at the time. I know I could always go to her for counsel, and she would give it. The days when I would buy lunch and eat half and bring home the other half for dinner, and those types of things, she saw me in a way that no one else at the time saw. And she poured into me. And this is why good leadership and good management is so crucial. And I believe that she paved the way for me without even knowing. Personally, professionally, the leader that I am today is because of the leader she was to me at the time. She said, you know, I'm going to bring you up. And I would say as well, the internship.
Did you know that you were worthy of it at the time? Did you know that you were absolutely worthy of this?
A part of it. Because remember, you know, I said there's something on the other side for me. And I went to Air Jamaica as an intern. I was not leaving. I need a full-time job.
Right. I need my offer.
Listen, so I wanted to make the best of this situation because I couldn't lose it. Because losing it, what does that mean for me? What does that mean for my brothers? What does that mean for the rent I have to pay? Because I eventually had to go and rent a place. What does that mean? I can't lose it. So now I have to focus on how do I not just keep the internship, but move from it. People are here now. They're doing the job. I want one of those jobs. I don't care which one, you know. Anyone.
I just need my foot in the door.
I just need a foot in the door. I already had the foot in the door, the internship. But what you do with the foot in the door is important. And I decided I was going to maximize it and do the best. And she gave me the space to do it.
Beautiful. So you did get the contract?
Yeah,
right. flight? In what position? Because you say any position, you got to take it, you know.
Any position. So I got a position as a reservations agent.
Lord.
And I'm like,
Are you a call for book the flight and the date and the, and when we want to change the date, you tell me, say, you got charged with $100 or
correct, that
whatever.
was me. And I loved it. I thought I would have worked at Air Jamaica forever. Yeah, I loved being there.
What were some of the biggest skills that you took from that job to step into the next one?
Customer service, dealing with people from all walks of life, dealing with colleagues as well from all walks of life, whether it be the pilots or the flight attendants, crew schedulers, customers calling, just the grace given when a customer calls and their flight is delayed or cancelled. So a lot of the training I received there really formed a lot of what I do today, because you deal with so many people in so many different areas.
And problem solving is at the top of it.
Correct. Because when that phone rings, you're the person talking, you have to figure it out.
Did you also have to do tuition for your brothers?
I did. Wow. I did. So you had asked me about the psychology, right? So I ended up doing a bachelor's in psychology. Beautiful. But that was after I started doing stuff for my brothers. And I was able to, I eventually moved from Air Jamaica into another position in another company when they closed down, and it was commission based. So I'd put my school on pause for their school. So now I got this job commission based, uncapped. So the money I can make what I need to go to school, because I haven't done anything since I left.
Of course.
ComC,
You
right?
sacrificed it.
I sacrificed it. So now I pushed myself. I would say it's the hardest I've ever pushed myself in that job, because I wanted to be able to pay for my school as well. And that's what I did. I worked. I went to school. I paid for my brother's school. We didn't have to take out any student loans. I sacrificed as much as I could. I budgeted as much as I could, so that we all, because I didn't want to come out with any loans, any debt.
And you are learning these things on the fly as you go along. You never have no real, in terms of mentor and coach and all kind of people to say, let me teach you financial coach for this, business coach for that. You are literally learning this as you go along.
Correct.
And figuring out what works and what doesn't work.
Correct. So when people were going out and buying food and doing all of these things, to me that's a luxury, because now my brothers, they need me. So I had a little book and I would write out how much money I make, how much was rent, how much was utilities, how much was all of it, bus fare, taxi fare, all of it, and what I could put aside and plan. So I started saving first for the tuition until I could actually start paying it. And when I started making certain money, there was no turning back. Because now I was able to now get a little bit more on the personal. I could now start going to these parties.
Yes.
I could now start buying the clothes and the dress and those types of things, because now I had a little extra. I earned it.
And you were being responsible. One of our partners for season 3 of Redirection is First Heritage Cooperative Credit Union, and they always speak about, you know, building a solid past. Because it is in building that solid past, you're creating the future. And it has a lot to do with the actions that you take. Even when you have a little bit, it is what can I do with the little bit, and how much can I even save from the little bit that you have. You said you and your brothers have never really talked about it, because it opens up wounds, and many people with different personalities just don't know how to confront certain truths. It's too painful for some. And for some, they've put it all the way back and shelved it in the recesses of their mind. Did they ever say thank you?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Because you're like, mommy.
Absolutely. Yes, so they do. They say thanks. The younger one a little bit more than the middle one. But his personality, he is, you know, the most introverted of us all.
Yeah.
But they've been very appreciative of it.
And what kind of men are they? Because I see the kind of woman you are. What kind of men are they? Because they would have also lacked the example of mommy. You would have assumed that role, but you're still not mommy.
Right.
And father. The men who would have been in their lives would have also failed them in some way, shape, or form. What kind of men are they?
I'm so proud of them both. They have done so much and achieved so much, and I could not be more impressed. The middle one,
Yes.
right? He's so smart. He's smarter than me. Book smart. I'm telling you, if you want to know anything, he is
That's
the
him.
person. And I've seen where he has just grown into this amazing human, and I'm so proud of him. And the younger one, I
Yes.
would say, is my child. The combination of the two of us, he's a little bit more outspoken, a little bit more rough around the edges, but he is about his money, honey.
All right.
Listen, he is about his money, and he wants to be able to provide. He has a daughter now,
Yes.
and his daughter is his world, and I've watched him blossom. And there was a time I was kind of worried for him, like I say, rough around the edges. However, I've created a space where I said, if you're angry, call me.
Yeah.
If you need a sounding board, call me. You need an outlet, even now, call me, and I will be there to talk to you, as busy as I am. And he will try to do that when he can. But he, I would say, carries the most anger of all of us.
Understood.
Yeah.
And he would have been the younger
He
one.
would have been the
I
younger
think the one in the middle would have understood more. He was
Yeah.
older. So there are things that he can reconcile with,
Yeah.
but being the younger one, there would be abandonment issues. A lot of issues. Has mommy ever expressed how proud she is of you in particular, for what you were able to do
Eventually.
eventually?
So when I became corporate manager, group manager,
Yes.
right? I visited her once. So she's still not in Jamaica. And she told me I was lucky. And I was so upset by it and hurt by it, because luck didn't play a role in my journey.
This was effort and strategy and
And blessings
intention.
and grace, because I never realized God's hand on my life. You talk about the prayer I prayed. I was never like that before. I was just going through the motions, and looking at it now, I can see that it was God guiding and directing me every step of the way, because if not, I don't know where I would be. And it wasn't all my doing, and it would be, I would say, bad of me. I'm trying to find the word.
Disingenuous to take the credit for
Disingenuous to
it.
take all the credit.
I understand.
Because it wasn't all. Because if I look back and see where I found the strength to do it, I don't know. So there had to be something bigger at play there. And when she said to me I was lucky and all of this, I ended up having to say to her, I wasn't lucky. I worked hard for this. Luck plays no place here.
Did
Look-
she understand that? Do you believe she understood when you said, this is talent, this is work, this is God, this is grace, this is favor, this is sweat?
Maybe not immediately. And she has never been a very expressive person. If she did tell me she's proud of me, or she did, I can't remember. Maybe she did. I don't want to say she
Or maybe
didn't.
she did in her
Or maybe
way.
she did in her way.
Correct.
And if we are to talk about her way, she speaks about me to her friends, right? She boasts. Whenever I take a flight somewhere, I travel here, I do this, I move this, I get this promotion, that promotion. She talks to her friends about it. So I think in her own way, that's her way of saying, good job.
How have you managed to forgive?
Wow.
Which I think is one of the biggest lessons, even if you haven't said it completely. I think your ability to become who you are, with a certain level of maturity that might have been forced upon you, but then understanding that the power within you is there to create better circumstances. I don't think you would have been able to do it if you carried it, if you carried bitterness and hatred. I feel like who you are had to let go in some spaces or to forgive. If I'm wrong, let me know.
So initially, it was the compartmentalizing. It wasn't forgiveness. There was a part of me that was angry. There was a part of me that was bitter. And I could not let that consume me. I had things to do. I had places to go. And so I had to compartmentalize it. I don't have time for that. And that had its positives, but it also had its negatives, because one trigger can bring it all crashing down. And that is what happened. So in 2021, I think it was, I got some news that broke me, broke the entire fiber of my being.
Wow.
And I went into the darkest place I've ever been. And everything that I had compartmentalized came rushing in. And it was so bad. I had to take time off from work, at least a month. I don't know how long I stayed in my bed. I don't know how long I didn't eat, because I did not see a way out. It broke my entire being, my entire core. And I will not speak specifics of that today.
And that is fine.
But I'll speak about how I dealt with it.
Yeah.
Because my partner and my best friend eventually said to me, you need to do something. You're scaring us. You're scaring us. You need to talk to somebody. And I didn't want to receive it. I'm like, talk to somebody? What do you mean? Talk to who? About what? How do I talk about this? And what happened, what I found out, brought everything I told you and more back. And everything that I locked away just came flooding. And I don't know how long it was. I really don't know. But I eventually went to therapy. And I started virtually, because I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't show. I couldn't do anything. I was so broken. My team had no idea. They just thought I was on vacation. And I did the work. And therapy is what allowed me to forgive. Because it didn't come easily.
I didn't think it would.
It didn't. And even going therapy twice a week first, then once a week, and for months, I don't even remember how long it was now, allowed me to forgive my mother, allowed me to forgive her then partner, allowed me to forgive myself. And little by little, that darkness I was in, I saw just a glimmer, like a little light. And I said to myself, when it was time to go back to work, just show up. Just show up. And everybody sees me at work, and they think I'm okay.
Or that you have everything.
They think I'm okay. And I was not okay. But every day I said, I'm going to show up. And I'm going to try to do one thing. Just one thing.
Are you okay now?
Not fully. I don't think I'll recover from this one.
And that's honest.
Maybe if you ask me in a few years, my answer will be different.
But right
now, I have endured. I have coped. I've improved. I'm more functional. I'm not as easily triggered. There is the healing that has started, the ability for me to speak to my mother again. All of these things is progress, because I shut myself off from everyone. And again, like I say, if you ask me in a few years, maybe my answer is different. But
I'm going to check you
right
back
now,
in a few years.
I don't think I'll get over it.
And I think life is unpredictable, eh? And just when you think you've gotten over that hump, you've gotten over that hurdle, and you go, oh, thank God I made it. You just don't ever know what's going to be thrown at you. What I can say is that God bless the people in your corner who said, you know, we can't lose you like this.
Yeah.
We can't lose you to your thoughts. We can't lose you to the darkness and the madness.
Yeah.
And they stay with you even in that anger, that wrath, and that stubbornness that you would have been in.
Yeah.
You know, we need people like that to help us see the light and to help save ourselves.
But Terry, at the time, I didn't even have anger. I didn't have effort for anger, you know. I was so broken. I didn't have effort for anything. I was numb. I couldn't feel.
Somebody would say that that probably was depression. Probably.
Probably.
And even all of that, what is your most priceless moment? I know that even though life throws a lot at us, there are these glimmers. You spoke about the glimmers of light. And I saw you light up when you spoke about the manager who,
Yes.
you know, really poured into you. What is a priceless moment that no matter what dark day you could possibly be having, it will always be priceless to you?
There are many. Because I've always tried to focus more on the positive.
And what's your most priceless
But
that
the
you can think of?
most priceless, I would say, ooh, this is a good
this is a
one.
hard
This is a hard one. My most priceless moment would be when I was promoted to corporate manager,
Yes.
jumping several ranks. When many persons said I should not have been in that position, and I proved them wrong. That would be the most priceless, because at the time I was going through so much personally,
Yeah.
professionally, and the fact that I was able to not let it hold me back, the naysayers talking about my age at the time, my experience at the time, my lack of a business degree at the time, and I still did it and boss it up. You
Look
said
at
boss
God.
lady when you
Yes.
started. That's what my team calls me, boss lady.
And I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Look at
when you
that.
said it, I was like, oh, wow.
God, it's a
God.
confirmation.
Yeah, man. The fact that I could have risen above all my circumstances and got there, jumping all of these ranks. I was project coordinator at the time, and I never managed a soul. And here I was, where a company decided to promote me into a position based on my own merit.
Oh, absolutely. But
It
I think
was
what is also
priceless.
very divine about it is that even though you had not been managing a soul in that institution, you had been managing the lives of not just yourself,
Yeah.
but your brothers. You were already in the business
Yeah.
of managing, of critical thinking, of problem solving. You're already picking up skills outside personally that you didn't even,
Yeah.
probably were not conscious of,
True.
that they played a big role, even though you are just project coordinator.
Yeah.
You are already destined for more.
Yeah.
My last question to you, having a life the way it's been up and down, and you having to be exposed to things that no child, male or female, should ever be exposed to. What's your definition of redirection?
So I knew this question was coming because
'Cause
I
you watched the
I
show.
watched every episode, listened to it before. So I
Thank
knew
you.
this question was coming, and I've
Yes.
thought long and hard about it.
Yes.
Because I could speak about the specific redirections, but what I would say redirection means to me is God's hand on my life. Because I am not supposed to be here sitting in this chair, sitting in this position, having the title I have today. Because if I did not have God's hand to guide me and direct me when I get to a crossroad, for him to say this one, and he spoke to me even when I didn't have a relationship with him, through my intuition and my common sense and through people. And I look at it and I say, it can only be God, because it was not only me. And you said something, that I took the lessons I had learned personally and brought it into my career. And that is exactly what I did without even knowing. It was all of those things that have made me, and I don't fault any of it, as hard as it is, because if I didn't go through those things, a lot of what happened to me, the challenges professionally, I wouldn't have been able to handle them the way I did to get to where I am today. That grit, the perseverance, the not giving up,
Yes.
I would say is the redirection. When you're at a crossroad and you don't know, and you listen to yourself and you listen to your gut, or what I know is God, that is redirection.
My darling Sharai Campbell, I don't have to ask Christ. I know that there are many things that you shared today that viewers are going to say you spoke directly to them. I believe what you shared today, what you felt comfortable sharing today, is going to resonate with people who are still going through what you went through and are trying to figure out and are asking themselves, why me, God? Why? And maybe what you have said today has given someone a little glimmer of not just light, but hope that life can try to break you. The most it can do is bend you. And you will absolutely take that new shape, that new form, and still create something absolutely beautiful. If no one has told you lately, we are proud of you, and I'm saying that on behalf of the entire crew here. We are proud of you that you still manage to get up every single day in spite of, to give the best of you to everyone you come into contact with. And you're just scratching, you're scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And there is more for you. And you will continue to mentor people in the spaces that you go into, even if you're not aware. You are going to be that manager who was the manager at Air Jamaica who poured into you. You will be doing that for somebody else who will one day sit, maybe not in the redirection seat, but they will sit in someone else's seat and say, that manager, that boss, that chief operating officer, Sharai Campbell, poured into me at a time that I thought was going to be it.
Yeah.
We love you. I cannot wait. I'm going to check you back in a couple of years. I think there's so many lessons that we can learn from you. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to be a part of season 3 of Redirection with Terri-Karelle.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I said I wasn't going to cry now. And I made it all the way to the end.
You made it.
And
you made it. You
what
made it.
works.
Just had to say I love you. And there's nothing wrong with tears. You work hard for it. And we just want to let you know that we love you. And we're always rooting for you. And anyone who is in the same position as you, we're rooting for them as well.
Absolutely.
I don't know what else to say. I hope you were as moved as I was. I hope you were as moved as the crew was. There was some depth and there are just moments of silence. Not all interviews will be kiki, kaka. And there's so many different moments of redirection that you have to appreciate. And you have to appreciate how every single guest here has honored the challenges, has honored the hurdles and the obstacles. And have been open and honest enough to share with you in the hopes that maybe it will give you some insight as to how to navigate yours. If you liked this episode, if it moved you, don't be stingy. Like, let me know. Give me the review. Give me the comments. If you're listening on the podcast platforms, go ahead and rate and review so that other people can listen to the podcast as well. And certainly, if you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe. I certainly hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. And of course, I will see you next week for another episode of Redirection with Terri-Karelle. Thank you to our partners, MasterCard, Heineken 00, Toyota Jamaica, Commercial Concepts, Spaces Jamaica, FHC Credit Union, Beauty Brands by MDS, Go Shore Couriers, and Brescia.